Hello and welcome to this episode of Tripology. It's the only backpacking show where the hosts are backpacking all the time. I'm Alan and I'm here with the ever easily distracted Adam.
Oh, look, is that something shiny? Thanks ever so much for joining us for another episode, guys. We love having you here. We really do appreciate it. This week, we've got a rather sensitive one in the beginning, but don't worry, there is another story involving some poo in the second half. Alan, my friend, how are you doing?
I'm okay. I'm ready to be sensitized. I'm feeling quite the empath today. So I'm looking forward to treading on eggshells in the first half of the episode and then getting all scatological and sort of listless in the second half.
Well, we've got to be honest, mate, because we can see that the room you're in looks rather similar to the one you were in last week. And the one that I'm in probably looks quite similar to the one I was in last week as well. So this is one of those rare occasions when we found somewhere we like to stay and we're just staying put for a little pause. I am getting easily distracted. I should have done a little bit more work over the last week, I think. But there's so many interesting people in this hostel and I love having conversations.
Yeah, for me, it's less that I really like where I am and more that I have basically forced myself to stay in one room in order to do a bunch of work before I go to Japan. And whereas for many people that might involve, working at a desk for 8 hours a day and then occasionally walking down the street or seeing something, I've pretty much trapped myself in this small 4-meter by 4-meter hotel room. I leave once a day to go and forage for food and then come back here. I am going a little bit crazy. You're the first person I've spoken to in a very long time, and I'm scared for my own sanity.
I've got to be honest, mate. I'm going to say what everyone else is thinking. If you're not watching the video of Alan in the room, then why not? But I must say, you look like you're doing a hostage video.
Yes. Now, if anyone knows Morse code, please try and interpret the movement of my eyes in order to locate me and send help.
But no, mate, I'm having a great time. I've now finished my road trip. I've done almost everything there is to do in New Zealand. And would you believe I've finished with something that I think is probably the most important? So I'd be interested to know whether you did it. At the beginning of February, of course, we know that now is not the beginning of February, but there is a celebration, a national day called the Waitangi Day. Had you heard of that? The 6th of February it is?
Uh-oh, sounds like controversial territory, Adam.
Yeah, it is. It is controversial territory on accounts of the old colonialism. But it is something that I think you should do if you are in New Zealand. So I guess the first half of this episode is basically going to be me telling you and anyone listening about the experience and sort of talking about how important it is to do something like that because it gives New Zealand context.
Okay, I'm ready for it. I've not had any experience with this special day, but I do know a little bit about colonialism and I'm sick of it.
So were you in New Zealand for a February the 6th?
I would have been, mate. I was in New Zealand for every single day of a calendar year at some point. But much like now, I was confined very much to working every hour that God sent me.
Right. So this is where we've got to tread a little bit carefully because I don't want to say anything that A, isn't true or B, offends anyone in that order. Basically, the Waitangi Day, the 6th of February, is the day when the Treaty of Waitangi was signed, which is essentially the moment that all of the Maori chiefs and a lot of the European settlers that lived here agreed to sign over sovereignty to the British monarchy and empire. So, I mean, it's pretty major stuff, mate. It's like a major, major moment in the history of New Zealand.
Is it like the equivalent of Independence Day, but for the New Zealand population?
Yeah, but it sounds more like it's the opposite of that, right? It's like the complete inverse.
Is it like the opposite of Independence Day, but for the New Zealand population?
Well, I went into it, much like lots of people probably listening to this show, thinking that it was more of a celebration of the nation, which I think is how it's billed. So I can only talk about my own experience and what I thought of it going in and now what I think of it coming out of the other end of the festival. No, I wouldn't do that live on air.
Yeah. Oh, we're going to talk a lot about poo in the second half of the episode.
Dear, oh dear, be careful if you go to Waitangi. No, mate, it was really going into it, right? It was billed, or for whatever it is I was exposed to or was consuming at the time, like a celebration of New Zealand as a unified country between the Maori and the European settlers, and anyone else who wanted to get involved, and that it kind of solidified or cemented one nation. We were all moving together. It was sort of about unity and community and, celebration, and this major, monumental moment in the history of the country. And when I got there, I was sort of, I'm not really sure what to expect, but made aware quite early on that a lot of people really don't like the day. A lot of people throughout the day will not try and cause chaos or bring up anything that's going to disturb people's peace or whatever. But there are a lot of people that basically think this day is a load of bullshit, that think it's bollocks, that think the history of New Zealand is something that can never be repaired and all this sort of stuff. And I realise I'm putting a lot of words in a lot of people's mouths, but I'll just describe to you what my experience of the day was like. Did you even go up to the Waitangi Treaty Ground, which is about 3.5 hours north of Auckland in the Bay of Islands?
Adam, I can't stress to you enough. My time in New Zealand was taken up working in a music shop, living in a crack house, and sort of playing pool most of the time. So rings a bell, but I don't think so.
Okay, that's interesting. I think you probably should come back. I think you would find it really interesting to do that sort of thing, because the Waitangi Treaty Grounds themselves are not only the place where the treaty was signed back in 1840 on February the 6th, but it's also a place where there's some museums. There's a guy called James Busby, I think his name was, and his house is still there, so you can walk around that. There's some Maori boats, sort of canoes, beautiful carvings and stuff. So it's really interesting to go to this area anyway as kind of a tourist attraction. You also see some cultural performances that might involve a haka. And you can see the boats, as I said. So it's really, really lovely to walk around, spend a long, long time. And the tour itself that you can do, if you come here, guys, and I am going to say this live on air, but if you come here and you want to do the tour, maybe tell the people who you book it with that you live in New Zealand, because you will get a slightly cheaper price. And as far as I know, they don't check. You know what those Kiwis are like? They just think the best of everyone.
But you can tell with you that you don't live in New Zealand, I think.
But I do. How can you tell that I don't if I do?
Well, because, well, I'll just say this. There's a certain demeanour about the Kiwi population that isn't shared by you. A sort of humility, a sort of laid-backness, an easiness. And you come from the British Empire all wound up tight like a pack of muffins, lying to people about your residency.
Sorry, did you say full price? Did I mention I'm from England? So anyway, it's a great experience. Like I said, the tour's really cool. Go there, have a good time. But the Waitangi Treaty Day Festival is a festival that is on the Waitangi Treaty Grounds. Thousands of people from all over the country travel to the Treaty Grounds to celebrate this free festival. And you can imagine it's not only a number of services. I mean, there are also some religious sermons and some speakers, and even the Deputy Prime Minister was there who, spoiler alert, got booed off the stage. I mean, mate, it was intense. The guy could not get...
I like that sort of thing.
The guy could not get a word in edgeways. He was trying to explain certain things and talk to the people that were around the stage, and people were just hurling abuse at him. And then there was even one person, a Maori guy, who broke off from the rest of the crowd, and he sort of started his own festival over on one side, spouting some sort of stuff about Maori history and what the actual treaty was like, and the signing of the treaty, and the fact that land had been stolen and it had never been returned, and all this sort of stuff. And about half of the group of people that were previously listening to the Deputy Prime Minister just walked over and started listening to him, and he was just doing his own festival in the corner. It was absolutely incredible. And I've got no doubt that the stuff he was saying... I
like that a lot, mate.
I've got no doubt that the sort of stuff he was saying was probably closer to the truth, right? I mean... We said it was going to be sensitive. And is it normal in these circumstances to experience generational guilt?
Yeah, definitely normal. Go on. Is that what you felt?
No, it was definitely what I felt. I almost felt bad for being English and going in to the festival not really understanding much about the history. I'd listened to a number of podcasts, which were fantastic. Ones that are run by Kiwis or spoken by Kiwis about the history of New Zealand, also ones in the sort of history podcasts, because the reason is when I was in India, I didn't know enough about the history between Britain and India and the relationship between the two countries.
That was noted by several Indian people that I spoke to, actually.
Oh, really? And I felt like I don't really know how to describe how I felt, apart from very guilty and ashamed and upset with myself that I hadn't done as much research as I should have. And I think if you're going to go to a country like India, which is incredibly rich and diverse and complicated and wonderful, and your country, i.e. the UK, Britain, England, whatever, has had such an impact on that country, and you're going to go there and enjoy it as a tourist, I do think it's the proper thing to do, the right thing to do, to bother to learn about the history.
Yeah, I mean, there's two interesting schools of thought with this, really, aren't there? Because on the one hand, you think, okay, I've directly benefited in some way. By being born in the UK, I've directly benefited from some of the things which come from living in a place which had an empire founded on the misery of a lot of different places and a lot of different nations. And then, on the other hand, you are not your ancestors.
Of course.
And you in your life might not have done anything that's directly impacted anyone at all. You might have tried very much to live in a way that doesn't have that effect. So I think that acknowledging that you are not your ancestors, while simultaneously acknowledging that you've benefited from a lot of things that come from living in the UK, being born in the UK, I think really the line under it has to be one of just awareness. I don't think you have a moral responsibility to feel guilty, but I do think you have a moral responsibility to try and not be ignorant.
Yeah, I think I would agree with that. I thought you were going to go down a different path there where I was almost going to disagree, but I don't think feeling guilty is necessarily the right emotion to feel. It's understandable why someone would, of course, but I am not my ancestors. However, I do think the responsible thing to do, the respectful thing to do, is to educate yourself and, like I said, give New Zealand context, and then it will change sort of how you move through the country and maybe help you understand things about society and community and that sort of thing. So the festival itself was, as you're probably imagining, there was a huge stage. There's also an area with a flagpole. I stood right by the side of the head of the New Zealand Navy, who was dressed to the nines and had 4 bodyguards that were all, I mean, they just looked so much like bodyguards. It was hilarious. It was, Men in Black kind of styly with the earpiece coming down. And one of them was looking at me quite often. And I thought, I hope he doesn't think that I'm someone he needs to keep an eye on. Or maybe... it's a strange situation.
If I was a security guard, if that was the job that I was working and I did see you, I would keep an eye on you for a couple of reasons.
But, go on, because it's quite clear that I'm not a Kiwi. Is that why? Or
that one is that you're not a Kiwi and you've been lying to people, telling them that you are to try and get free tours. And then
you don't have to be a Kiwi to live in New Zealand.
Another reason is because I think you're quite handsome. So I think it's just easier to look at handsome people, in general.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. That's a compliment, though. Thanks.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't say they were all negative. I just think that there's a chance that guy might have just found you attractive. And it was like, maybe he was having an internal conflict. Like, I really should be focusing on stopping a riot, but that guy is quite cute.
Is that really unprofessional, isn't it?
Yeah, it's quite unprofessional.
There's no way you can explain yourself out of that. That was really cool. But yeah, big sort of open area with a flagpole, and it's got the original flag of New Zealand, and it's all a little bit sensitive, and no one really likes to talk about it. And then there's this huge area with loads of food stalls and performance areas, the stages, people doing cultural performances, live bands, loads of hackers. I probably saw like 6 to 8 different styles of hacker. Really, really cool. Really worth going to. And a high number of Maoris. I mean, with sort of thousands and thousands, as you'd probably expect. But what was really interesting is a lot of people in the audience really did not seem happy at all. And lots of them were shouting abuse, especially when certain speakers were speaking at this thing. I got there at 4 a.m., by the way. The first service is at 5 a.m., and it is a full day that runs all the way until about 4 or 5 p.m. It's a huge, huge area. You can obviously move between the different areas and experience different parts of the festival. But I wanted to be there for the full day because I thought at the time it was going to be the last thing I ever did in New Zealand, and I wanted to finish having learned all of that stuff. But something so amazingly comical but awkward happened when I don't know how many speakers there were in a row, but you can imagine it's pitch black because it's 5 a.m. There's a couple of hundred people sitting by the main stage looking at the people who are speaking, and then there are cameras and drones flying over the rest of the crowd, which even at 5 a.m. was still a few thousand, and we are watching on a huge screen what is being shot at the main stage. So the main stage is kind of a cordoned off area where you only allow invitees into the scene, right? And then there's thousands of us, many of which whom were sitting on the floor watching everything that's going on this absolutely gigantic screen that is just not too dissimilar from something you'd see in a stadium, right? And then each person speaking for, let's say, 15, 20, 30 minutes.
A jumbotron.
Yeah, it's called a jumbotron, isn't it? Very well done.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes it's like, oh, look, what about if these two people kiss? Oh, this guy looks a bit like Michael Cera.
Are you referring to me because of my hair?
No. I just, that's the kind of thing that's kind of a jumbotron activity.
Oh, right. There's me licking my lips, looking at the security guard. I'll see you. But yeah, so you imagine the scene, right? And then the first, I don't know, let's say first 5 or 6 people who were speaking were all white. And I know this might sound a little bit shocking to say, but you have to imagine how culturally sensitive and how complicated this history is. And then the situation itself, thousands of us sitting there. I'm like listening intently to what's going on and hearing the murmurs of other people saying, oh, this is bullshit, you stole our land and all this sort of stuff. And then the first 5 speakers were 5 or 6 white people. And then the first speaker who came to the podium, who was Maori, started speaking for a few seconds, and then the editor cut to a shot of a single white woman in the crowd who was yawning and falling asleep. And the entire crowd erupted in laughter. It was the timing was absolutely impeccable. It was so. Oh, wow. I mean, obviously, it was incredibly awkward. But you have to, in those situations, you have to see the funny side of it.
Did she get stirred by the laughter and then you got to see her reaction to being on the jumbo?
Yeah. It was a massive yawn. It was a really big yawn that she then sort of saw herself on the big screen and then tried to hide. But she was...
I imagine that just seconds earlier, she'd been so engaged that the cameraman singled her out and was like, this is a good woman to cut to. Because she was like so locked in. Okay, we're going to show that this person has empathy and is engaged with the speech. Cut to her. And then she was yawning and she must have felt really bad about that. I once, in a university lecturer, fell asleep. And when the teacher said, Alan, why are you sleeping in my lecture? I woke up and said, I wasn't sleeping, I was sneezing, and everyone laughed.
I was sneezing. Oh, but
that was my, like, coming out of sleep and finding myself in a situation. That was what my brain came up with.
Oh, right. So you weren't trying to squirm. It was just what the first.
No, because I was unconscious. I was unconscious, and I woke up to someone like shouting at me.
That got you off the hook. You're such a quick thinker anyway. She didn't say that.
She like challenged it. She was like, no, you weren't. Why did you have your eyes closed? And I went, you try and sneeze with your eyes open.
Yeah, I knew it. That's amazing. I'm actually surprised that more people don't have car accidents when they sneeze. It's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, because it's an intense experience to sneeze, isn't it?
It really is. My sister will hate me for saying this, but she's got the funniest sneeze of anyone I've ever met. And it is such an anticlimax.
What does it do? It like goes hard and then peters out?
Yeah, so she goes, this is. I can't believe I'm doing this live on air. She goes, and that's the end.
Wow.
And then everyone's waiting there with bated breath going, come on. And it's the end of the show, and it's just a cliffhanger.
I like that people are so encouraging. For years, for my whole life, I held in the sneeze. I always just sneezed into my own head and didn't allow it to expel out. And then a girl once said to me, she said, if you can do that, you can explode your brain.
Sounds
And
plausible.
I thought that probably not real, but I Googled it, and you actually can cause significant damage. You can like pop blood vessels in your head. You can cause brain bleeds. It's actually quite dangerous.
Oh, shit.
So upon reading that, I broke the habit. And now, you know what it's like to live 30 years sneezing into your own brain and stifling it. And then suddenly someone gives you social permission to expel your sneezes out into the world. It's a joy.
No, but it is. But isn't it like the sort of the dab? Isn't that what people are doing these days? The dab, where they
into the crook of your elbow. That's what Canadians do.
yeah. So I think that's now socially acceptable to do that because people just don't carry handkerchiefs anymore, do they?
That's exactly what I do, mate. Into the elbow, but just expelling that and not keeping it in like I've been doing for all these years. It's been a really liberating experience for me.
You've added years, back onto your life expectancy where you were previously shaving them off. So I'm very, very glad indeed, because that means the future of tripology is going to be ever so long and prosperous.
There's a lot of things that I can do now as a expellery sneezer that as a internal snot gambler I was going to miss out on.
How the hell did we get onto this? It's a travel show, not a hygiene show. But yeah, so what I do want to say is that my experience of Waitangi Treaty Day at the Treaty Grounds was brilliant. It was informative, educational. It was quite shocking in some respects. But if you want to learn about the history of New Zealand and sort of the relationship between European settlers and Maori, and see some traditional Maori practices, whether it's dances or even the launching of the boats that we saw along the river and all this sort of stuff in traditional dress. It is absolutely amazing, and they've got some Maori sort of traditional dishes there that are for sale. And a raw fish salad, oh my God, it's like the best thing on earth. So get one of those. I do think, honestly, this is a rare piece of advice for me. If you are in New Zealand for a February the 6th, you should prioritise going to the Waitangi Treaty Grounds for the Waitangi Treaty Day. I do think it's a very important thing to do, and I think overall you'll have a great experience, but I also think you should just be aware of how sensitive the day and the celebration, or whatever you want to call it, is, and just expect it to be sort of not all good all the time.
And just approach it with care and awareness and choose not to live in ignorance. I think that's really salient advice.
And maybe have a really good night's sleep beforehand, because if you get up early, there is a chance that you'll be caught on camera doing something that will be very embarrassing, and then you won't be experiencing generational guilt. It will be literal present-day guilt.
And her children and her children's children will probably have some generational guilt about that thing. They'll have like a clean slate. They'll be like, okay, the world's peaceful and beautiful, but at that time, my grandma yawned at someone's speech, and in doing so, cursed my family.
Yeah. I mean, if you don't understand the reasons why the Maori think that land has been stolen, then definitely read up on it and listen to a load of podcasts. But even just one tiny example is that there is a difference in the translations between the English text and the Maori text. So even something.
So I was just doing an impression of that one.
Even something as small as that can have profound effects and consequences. But it was a wicked time. I drove up there in my van, and then on the way down, I went to a place called Whangarei. So if you're in New Zealand and you ever see a place name that starts with a WH, it's usually pronounced with an F. And as someone who likes languages and linguistics, Alan, I wanted to ask you, do you know if there is a Maori alphabet?
Interesting question. I don't think I've ever seen Maori art that includes lettering.
So this isn't a test, because I don't think there is.
I think that Polynesian culture was oral tradition until colonialism gave them a written language.
Yeah, okay. So I think that's probably right, because a lot of the signs that are in Maori that I see around New Zealand, and often it's Maori first and then English second, is written using the English alphabet, right? All the same letters.
Similar to like Vietnamese, for example. But the Vietnamese did have a alphabet, but it was kind of taken, and the Western alphabet was put in its place.
Right. So can you think, with all your experience and knowledge, why the letters WH would be used if they didn't have an alphabet, if there isn't a Maori alphabet, right, and they're writing Maori words, trying to reproduce the sounds that they would have made orally? Why would they have chosen to write those words with a WH meaning an F? Why wouldn't they have just used the letter F?
I'm going to be speaking in ignorance here because I just don't know.
Do you sort of understand the question, though? Do you understand what I'm trying to ask?
Yeah. What I would, again, this could just not be true, but I would likely say that the WH was some linguists' attempt at expressing something about the sound that's made in those words. So F probably isn't an exact, apt description for that sound either.
Right, okay.
So given the choice of WH or F, they went with WH for whatever reason. But it was probably the result of a Western linguist trying to phonetically spell those words and not having the phonemes to represent it.
Yeah, it sounds plausible. I'm very glad I asked. I guess the WH sound, even in the word, that old Family Guy joke, whip, cool whip. You know that joke? Maybe
whip.
Yeah, something similar to that, maybe. But anyway, it's interesting. So on my way back, I went through Whangarei, and don't worry, guys. This is where the poo comes in. I was on my way back, and a typical van life thing to do is, because I don't have a shower in my van, but I've been living in my van for 4 months, on and off. What I like to do when I go to a bigger town, if there's an aquatic centre or a leisure centre of some sort, a swimming pool.
What, like an aquarium? Like where fish live?
No, not where fish live, where people swim. That's an aquatic centre.
What I like to do, in the absence of a shower, I like to get in a fish tank and splash about with all the fishes.
No, I was really hoping I would come across somewhere similar to the thing we found in Oman. That was great. Oh, a wadi. But
I've never heard of a swimming pool be called an aquatic centre.
Well, like a leisure centre. I think that's...
I've heard of leisure centre, but that's not what you said. You said aquatic centre.
Okay, well, one of those where there is a building for the community, where there is a swimming pool, often a sauna, a steam room, some showers. So little tip for you.
Sometimes probably fish as well in the reception or something.
Yeah, especially if there's a Chinese restaurant on site. And and I use it as an opportunity just to get clean, have a good old wash, not worry about the water bill. And you're talking like sometimes 4, 5, 6, maybe 11 for the most premium services. Careful, dollars, so that you can just have a real good wash if it's been a couple of days since you've had a proper shower. And I went to this one in Whangarei that I've been to a couple of times. I was really looking forward to it. And I spoke to the staff and they said, yeah, just get the single adult, whatever it was, $11, and you can use all the facilities. I had been in the jacuzzi. I went over to the main pools because apparently, don't quote me on it, but apparently it's one of the biggest wave pools on the North Island or something like that. So I thought, look, I'm not a kid anymore. I'm on my own. It would be weird if I was just enjoying the wave pool. I put my stuff down. I went in up to my waist of the wave pool, looked at all the kids that were in there who weren't mine, and I saw a lot of other adults who seemed to be the parents of these kids, and I thought it does feel a little bit wrong that a dude of my age is just enjoying a wave pool with all these kids.
Yeah. So close to February 6th.
Yeah. There hadn't been the correct number of days for it to be socially acceptable for me to be in swimming pools with other people's children. So I thought,
I understand.
I'm probably overthinking it, but I'm gonna go and sit in the jacuzzi and just lay low, right? I went into the jacuzzi. I was sitting there with my arms out, enjoying the heat and the bubbles. I don't think I'd even been in there for 2 minutes. And everyone started screaming, and then there was a mass exodus. Everyone was running out of the pool as fast as they could. Some people were having a lot of difficulty, obviously, because they were up to their neck in water. So they were swimming as fast as they can, running.
You've not had you.
The waves were going everywhere. And I thought, what the fuck is going on? And there was this young girl. She must have been about 16. Poor thing on minimum wage. She's there on the radio going, code red, code red. And this guy comes running out. He's like, what's going on? And the look on her face was absolutely amazing. She said, get me the net, get me the net. One of the kids was shit in the pool. And it was, I could see the look on your face. I couldn't fucking believe it. She was beside herself. Her face in just a split second was saying so many things. It was like, I am not getting paid anywhere near enough for this fucking shit. And she had to wait until her colleague came from the other side of the swimming pool with this big net. And then we all just sort of watched her try and fish this turd out of the water.
Now, would you rather do that or clean a public restroom?
You mean just as an act, just as a sort of task to have to do?
Yeah.
You'd make it into a game, wouldn't you?
You've got minimum wage.
Yeah.
You need the money.
Mm.
You can fish a turd out of a swimming pool or you can clean a public restroom.
No, but hang on. This is more complicated than this, Alan, because it's not representative of what the job interview would have been like when she accepted it. I think when you go into cleaning public toilets, you probably expect to see a little bit of shit. When you want to be a lifeguard, you probably just think you're going to be in and around a swimming pool, just making sure that no one drowns.
I hear what you're saying. Let's say in one scenario, you're working in the swimming pool and then someone shits. Yeah. In the other scenario, you're working in a cafe and your boss says, go and clean the toilets. So both have surprised you.
Right.
Which are you more upset about?
I'm more likely to just take the cafe toilets in my stride, I think.
See, that's remarkable to me because I would much prefer to do the swimming pool job. And if any aquatic centres are listening, I'm in need of employment. Because here's what I think. You have distance.
Right.
You have a net on a stick. You can look away. You can fish that thing out. You can get rid of the problem, all while maintaining distance. Whereas in the cafe restroom, you are right up there. And maybe it's all invisible. Maybe it's invisible grime and dirt, but it's closer to you.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know if we'll be able to agree on this one, mate. I just think the fishing out of the turd, like I said, you could probably treat it as a game. But she also had to do it in front of hundreds of people and in front of the family of, the suspects, whoever it was.
What, the poo's parents?
Yeah, the poo's parents, who didn't own up, by the way. As far as I know, it's a mystery poo. No one...
Well, you don't, do you? I'm sorry. If you shit in a swimming pool, you don't own up to it. That's one of the few scenarios in life where you just keep fucking quiet at all costs.
Do you not? I mean, maybe the right thing to do, though, is to say that it was me. Sorry, I'm struggling. I mean, if they're a young kid, but as a situation...
I'm struggling.
The
I'm really going through it at home.
The waves are enormous. No, I mean, what I would have done is probably when I was calling in sick at the bank all those years ago, I used to just say I had diarrhea if I didn't want to go in because people don't ask. If you say you have diarrhea, which is already pretty embarrassing, a lot of people don't feel comfortable saying that they have that. The manager just goes, all right, hope you get well soon. And that's it.
Describe the diarrhea to me.
It's case closed, isn't it? Of course. Stop drinking chai.
Usually, yeah.
You're lactose intolerant. But then once everyone had got out of the pool, it was made clear that we couldn't go back in the pool anymore. I don't know what they had. They probably had to absolutely...
Were some people still hankering after getting back in?
I mean, I just paid $11 to use that thing.
Well, that's disappointing news. The shit's not been in the pool for a whole 60 seconds. Can I get back in?
It is February the 7th, after all. No, I...
Just cover me in chlorine and I'll swim about the pool and clean it for you.
I won't need that net, don't worry. No, but my first thought was, oh, fucking hell, I've just paid $11 for that. I wonder if I get my money back. I wonder if I can just, be charged.
The show was hardly worth it.
Could I be charged for just the jacuzzi? Is that all right? But then one lady popped her head out of a side door, which I think backed onto the reception, and she said, "Guys, has anyone seen the net? I've got a code red in the kids' pool." And they were like, "What? Twice in one day?
What,
This
again?
is a nightmare." Yeah. So there was another one that they had to go and clean up immediately afterwards.
Wow.
And that was
interesting that they use code red. I mean, I suppose it's the worst thing that can happen in a swimming pool.
Yeah, because you're implying...
What if someone dies and floats face down in the water? What code is that? Also a red?
Yeah, or maybe they just use code red for everything bad that could happen.
There's something in the pool which shouldn't be in there.
Yeah, it's a code red.
Someone's released a fish into the pool trying to build an aquatic centre.
There are little things like that in life, aren't there, where you think, how is that not a code brown? How? How did they not use a code brown to describe that? So, and that was it, mate. And that was such a wonderful sort of 2-day period. I had an amazing time. One thing I didn't mention that I don't even know if I should because I think it's going to set you off is I went to this tiny little Indian restaurant on the way to the treaty grounds, and guess not who but what I was served by.
Oh no. An Indian robot.
The robot wasn't Indian as far as I could tell. But yeah, it was a robot. It was so fucking out of place, man. It was hilarious. It was this tiny little know-nothing. I'm not going to call it a shithole, but there's not much going on there. And I went to this Indian restaurant. I was had hankering for some Indian food. And I went...
and a conversation with an Indian person, because I know you love to tell Indian people that you've been to India. So a big part, much like in the swimming pool scenario, a big part of what you enjoy about the experience was taken from you.
No, not at all. You are right. I do like... I wouldn't say I like selling Indian people I've been to India, but I like talking to them about India if they're from India, because I'm interested in hearing why, their story, and I find it interesting. And that's
I think you like telling people that you've been there. I think you can't wait. You're like, "Oh, India. What province are you from?"
Yeah, that's interesting that you're I didn't say I was Indian. I was born in New Zealand. Oh, okay.
Oh,
and then
Maharashtra.
Do you know there's been a few people that have been... I met someone recently who was from Jamnagar, and when I told them that we had been there, their head nearly popped off. It was
yeah, wow.
It was really, really funny, mate. But when I went in there, I saw this robot. I could not believe it. It was an Indian restaurant that for the first 3 panels, if you imagine a fast food restaurant, right, you've got the menus at the back. The first 3 panels were burgers, fried chicken and pizza. And then it was the Indian stuff. I thought, okay, this is going to be one of those restaurants where, the food's shit.
So how was the burger?
Yeah, I didn't get a burger, mate. I just got a paratha. You know me, paratha with a little bit of pickle and some raita.
Well, I'm going to set you off before the end of the episode as well, because I have been so focused on work here in Busan that I have gone to the same restaurant almost every day.
Okay, but hang on. Look, I'll give you the benefit of the doubt because I know you're a very busy man and you like routine and you like efficiency. Are you ordering the same thing? Please say no.
No.
Okay, good.
The reason I'm going there is because they've proven themselves. It's like very close walking distance, and I'm having to remember to eat at the moment because I'm working so hard.
You are looking slim.
It's close. Thank you. Yes, I'm wasting away. It's within walking distance. My opinion on the touchscreen's completely changed. Now I prefer it because it's just efficient. I go in there, order what I want. They do a huge range of produce. I click it. It's being made. I can see when I click order, I can see them get the ping and they start making it.
Yeah.
And then there's like a buffet of kimchi and radishes and all that sort of stuff. The Wi-Fi's fast. It's always empty. It's 24 hours, so I can go whenever I want. And it's just a dream in there. It's just so efficient and wonderful. Sometimes I think I should try more different foods in Busan. And then I usually end up thinking that place is nice and easy and convenient and affordable.
So why would you change it? If that's what works for you, mate, and time is of the essence, then...
I wish there was an Indian robot there.
All I can do is just agree and say I'm sure it's the right decision for you, but it won't be the sort of thing that I'll be doing. You should go out and taste the food in Busan, mate. Have you been to a Russian restaurant yet?
Mate, you've not given me any tips or recommendations for Busan, despite me relentlessly asking you over text. So if you would do that, then I will go to the places. You gave me lovely recommendations for Seoul and nothing for Busan so far.
Okay, well, if you're listening to this now and you've been to Busan and you've got some lovely food recommendations to send to Alan, flick us an email, send us a message on Instagram. But I think it's about time we went over to the Lost and Found section. There is a link in the description.
Yeah, go and click on that link. If you do, you'll be asked for some money. And if you spend that money, you'll go to a magical realm beyond the podcast where the theme music dies down and we start talking about all kinds of effervescent and wonderful things. We will see you, if you choose to join us on that adventure, there.
We'll see you there. Bye-bye.
Bye.